you need to be proud of everywhere you're from, especially if you're from South Oak Cliff.
For those of you all who don't know, let me say this. We are the Mecca, no doubt. We started all of this in this area as far as the winning tradition.
We are the foundation. We're the school that set the standard.
The Sauk Golden Bears are state champions.
SOC, that's who we be. A history in the making.
The drought is over for Dallas ISD.
We did it. We finally bring it home. We did it for the hood.
Return to the Mecca was everybody believing in the inner city and coming back to South Oak Cliff.
In 2021, the Golden Bears of South Oak Cliff made Texas high school football history. But the story of Sauk dates back more than half a century, when one school in South Dallas set the standard for excellence during the era of integration. This is the story of the rise, the fall, and the return of the Mecca.
Looking at historically what South Oak Cliff has been, opened as an all-white school originally. When integration happened following Brown v. Board of Education, sometimes in combination with the white flight phenomenon that happened when white families moved out of the city following Brown v. Board of Education, when these schools started to integrate, went from 100% white to 100% black almost overnight.
It's really like the first neighborhood community where a lot of African Americans bought their first homes. They owned the stores, they owned the cleaners, and so they had pride in the community. That kind of pride and tradition is passed down to generation, and people just believe in it, and it takes on a legend of itself.
When we first moved here, we experienced a lot of success throughout all the programs. Boys basketball got a state championship during the 70s. The girls basketball team got a state championship. Football team, we reached the state semifinals.
So we call ourselves the Mecca because we were the original #1 high school in our opinions.
The Golden Bears put together their most successful season in school history in 1970, under a first-year head coach who would build a perennial power at Sauk.
Norman Jett was a big, loud, flamboyant coach at South Oak Cliff. He started there as an assistant in the mid-60s, took over as head coach after integration finally made its way through Dallas.
He was a white coach with an all-black team, and we all really loved playing for him and cared deeply about him as a coach.
He wanted to make them the best that he could, so he was vocal. He wasn't mean, but he was very loud and boisterous for the kids and really just make them the best that they could be.
He was a stickler for business, down to business. He'll tell you like it is, and but you can tell him and also all the coaching staff, they actually cared about their players.
Coach Jett was, oh man, he was an awesome coach. He was an awesome man. He was a father figure. I've seen him buy kids shoes, glasses. He always made a way for us.
They were a very good program almost from the very beginning after he got there. They started winning, and they won a lot of games in the 70s and then into the early 80s. From what we can tell from Pro Football Reference, there were 24 players at that time that had gone on to play in the NFL.
Talking about Wayne Morris, Oscar Rohn, Harvey Martin, Michael Downs, Egypt Allen, Gerald Taylor was my class. They were all Americans, Just went on, and you expect to do the same thing and just pass it to the next class.
A lot of players who got college scholarships. One year, every single senior on the Sauk team got a college scholarship of some kind. So there was a lot of talent coming through. And that was one of the issues with a lot of Norman Jett's detractors, was that for a program that produced so many Division I players, how come they aren't going any further than they are in the playoffs?
We did good under Coach Jett, but we never could get over that hump. So we lost the teams that we knew was inferior. We knew we could beat those teams, but it's just like almost like a curse.
There was a new principal at South Oak Cliff named Frederick Todd. He and Norman Jett didn't really get along very well. There was a lot of opinion as to why that was, that they didn't get along, until finally one day, Frederick Todd, the principal, called Norman into his office and basically told him he was fired. He was making a change. He said it was just time to make a change.
It was a shock. It was a total shock to me.
I think he was just so shocked and hurt that he didn't know what to do.
Jett didn't question it. He instead sued the district. He said he was fired because he was a white coach at a black school. That case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. In the end, he lost 5-4. The Supreme Court ruled against him. That was it. That was the end of it. He never coached in high school football again, mainly because of the lawsuit, which dragged on for 10 years. Almost immediately, South Oak Cliff went into regression in football. Players started leaving. Families started leaving. That's how we saw the progression of schools like DeSoto and Duncanville in football, because a lot of those families moved out of South Dallas's attendance zone and moved into those areas, and they essentially grew into powerhouses.
In the void left by SOC, other Dallas ISD schools rose to prominence.
Ball to David Jones. Jones, touchdown. Dallas Carter capitalizes on yet another turnover, and it's taken a 24-7 lead.
The Carter Cowboys claimed the 1988 5A state championship, but were stripped of their title by the UIL years later. In the following decades, one man led turnarounds at Lincoln and Skyline. Reginald Samples, a former Golden Bear, who would come to be known as the Godfather.
He's a remarkable football coach and certainly knows his way around an X's and O's board. But what I admire most about Reginald Samples is that he's a program builder, and he helped to build programs both at Dallas Lincoln and at Skyline into stars.
He knows how to push a kid. He knows how to push a coach out their comfort zone.
Coach Samples has high expectations. He's very demanding. He demands the best of his players and coaches. And I think that expectation, the players have to live up to that.
We loved, but we feared him. He led with an iron fist as a coach, but at the same time, he'll give you all the love. He'll give you his last dollar if you ask for it.
He instilled a lot of things, work ethic, always being on time, not being content with just mediocrity, striving for the best, and just really busting your butt. That's the biggest thing I can say about Coach Samples is, he's probably the hardest working guy you'll ever be around.
Jason Todd played and coached underneath Samples, becoming another branch of the Godfather's coaching tree when he took over as head coach at South Oak Cliff in 2015.
The way he carried himself as a student, as a football player, he just had those characteristics as far as being a leader that you knew they would carry over and make him a successful coach.
The Bears were in the midst of a renaissance under Emmett Jones, another Samples protege.
And no better person to be with than Coach Jones, because we kind of grew up in the coaching game together. Just ironic how things worked out. In that 1 year, the next thing I know, he was at Texas Tech, and, he left me the keys.
I pushed for him very hard. At that time, they wanted to go in a different direction, but I knew who that job was for. I knew he would take the baton and just continue the vision that was in place at South Oak Cliff. I stood on the table for him over and over and over again, and it finally happened for him.
And it happened for Jason Todd at the school his grandfather, Dr. Frederick Todd, served as principal for 14 years.
My grandfather, he was always big on education, so, it didn't matter what you were doing in life, everything come down to some kind of way dealing with education, spelling, math, So that was number one for him, but he also took a lot of pride in athletics and the success of that by his athletes, along with them being good scholars. So I was always around South Oak Cliff, growing up. My mother was a graduate here, my uncle graduated from here, so, I knew a lot about the school and a lot about the pride of the school, just from growing up in a household that had former Bears in it. What I was hoping to do was win a state championship, the same thing that Coach Jones had in mind when he took the job. The biggest thing was just about it was going to take a lot of work.
Work that would go far beyond the football field, as the campus at South Oak Cliff was beginning to crumble. Juneteenth, a celebration of Black liberation from slavery, a chance for a community of color to commiserate. and a respite from the realities of life in zip code 75216.
Golden Bears, South Oak Cliff, 75216.
75216. One of the toughest areas, no doubt, to grow up in.
Our zip code currently, ranks at the top of the state of Texas with the most people incarcerated. The challenges are deep. It's oppressive, the things that take place here.
You have to deal with so many different things, from drug houses to drug pushers to prostitution to gangs. You're in the middle of everything.
It's real rough. The surroundings. You got to keep a good head up on your shoulders because, some people, they become the product of their environment. Some people, they look for it out.
It's a snap of a finger you can make a bad decision and mess up your life.
We have several students that have dealt with significant life circumstances, maybe being homeless, losing a parent.
My son, oldest son, was murdered 2 years ago across the street on Utah. Senseless gun violence. So we've experienced it. And I tell everybody, education inequity leads to poverty and poverty leads to violence. If we want to fix out the poverty level and violence level here in the southern sector, we have to educate our kids.
The schools, the actual facilities, have been neglected.
By 2015, South Oak Cliff High School had been open for more than 60 years, and a building that had once been the pride of South Dallas was now on its last legs.
When we think about the pillars of the Black and brown community, they're your home, your schools, and your churches. Those are the places we go to for support. When SOC wasn't right, it wasn't holding up his end of the bargain in regards to supporting the community like it should.
It was a slow deterioration of the building, and it wasn't nothing unusual to any other buildings that you may find, and so the infrastructure started breaking down within the building.
It was a complete disaster. If it rained outside, it rained in the building.
It was bad, man. We literally had no ceilings. So we could see up into the air conditioning.
Leaky pipes, some classrooms would totally flood.
We had rats running down the hallway while students are in the building. You would think they'd be afraid to come out.
We had termite infestation, we had lead in the pipes. Depending on what classroom you was in, your classroom would be too hot or too cold.
The building was just falling apart completely. You couldn't believe that we went to school here.
We had a very small weight room. Weight room that's been outdated, probably for decades. We had, one field, we had to utilize the baseball field / softball field, of course, when they're not there. And
the locker rooms was like being in prison, because you was caged in and stuff like that. The gym was like, so it was a complete disaster.
As the problems with the building continued to pile up, the morale at SOC plummeted until December 7th, 2015, when a group of students led a campaign for change.
And I felt like school was a place where you could come to unwind, be comfortable, and be yourself, let loose from the harsh realities of what it was like going home. When I first came here, this was almost like a battling ground. It was just like being in the neighborhood. It just became like a buildup of frustration, and then boom, the walkout.
What do we want? A new school! When do we want it? Now!
And the students were protesting at their conditions. And it was a very well organized and orchestrated walkout and a community expression of dissatisfaction.
There's prison systems that look better than y'all school right now. That's right. So it's very serious. I won't stand for this! I won't stand for this!
One of the leaders of the walkout was also the starting quarterback.
David Johnson, South Oak Cliff High School, Dallas, Texas.
David is one of those once-in-a-lifetime kids that's really wise beyond his years.
South Oak Cliff holds a lot of history, and we deserve the best for our community and for the students.
He had always been a leader, so it didn't surprise me that he took on that role and took that initiative to want better for not just football, but for the school period and the whole student body.
It was easy for the team and the school and the adults to get behind David because he spoke so eloquently. He had research-based information.
Lease has gotten so bad that we've upgraded from buckets to trash cans.
These problems have drained our students and staff to the max, and enough is enough. In this community, we became comfortable with not getting what we deserve. It just became a norm, so we just settled for less. When it was finally somebody not afraid to speak up, everybody was on board with it.
We teach our children to stand up for what is right. And he was doing what he believed was right for not just for him, but for his student body, his colleagues, his friends. And I'm proud of him. He did an awesome job leading this community along with 4 other children, just leading this community.
Although the student movement would eventually serve as a catalyst for change, it took time to garner support from everyone.
They were fought against by the teachers, principals. It wasn't the whole school got together and did it together. No, those kids were seen as rebellious and needed to be controlled at that time.
The day of the protest, when they started, figuring out what we were doing, I got put into the office. They called my dad up here, and they all tried to get me not to do it. But like I told my dad, like I told Coach Mason, like I told the principal at the time, I won't walk out if y'all don't want me to walk out. But I can't stop the protest. The protest gonna go on with or without me there or not.
At first, I was like, man, y'all know y'all don't need to do that. But then, once I thought about it, I looked around and I'm like, well, these kids take a stand, let them stand. This teaches them, don't just be settled with the way things are.
The students wasn't asking for significant gifts. They were just asking for the basic tenets that every student should be offered on a daily basis.
Children ask for Jordans, they ask for cell phones. Children ask for PlayStations, Nintendo games. But these kids said, we want a new school.
In hindsight, they're heroes.
Money to fix the building wouldn't come easily either. It took months of continued pressure by the students and the community before they were rewarded.
We kept fighting, we kept going down to the board meetings, speaking on the mic.
All y'all, black, white, Hispanics, have failed the people in Oak Cliff.
The situation that's happened at South Oak Cliff was here the last bond and the bond before that. This is not a new situation.
Our building is telling you we can't take no more. South Oak Cliff cannot take anymore.
They kept telling us no, but one day we finally got $52 million. It was not easy, but it was worth the fight.
We had to add a lot of money from some other budgets because they only had $13 million for this facility. It ended up being over $50 million of renovation. But it all started on that night, December the 7th, and it was kind of a foreshadowing of the art of the possible.
Before there wasn't nothing happening. It was just going to school every day. We seeing the same conditions. Administrators not really saying nothing about it. Teachers really don't know what's going on. So before that protest and everybody stood up and walked out, I don't think nothing would have happened.
The impact that it had on the neighborhood went beyond just the school system. So in the community, how they reacted, it was beautiful. Like the 4 Oak Cliff, jumped off. More alumni started to come back around. We started getting more dads involved within like the sports realm. To me, it was a completely 360 of what it was into what it is now.
I believe that was the beginning of the Renaissance. The South Oak Cliff Renaissance or the Oak Cliff Renaissance. I remember everyone working together and becoming more cohesive. And it was a monumental historical time for our community.
With funding finally secured for a renovated campus, Jason Todd began to build hype with a hashtag, Return of the Mecca. But it would take years for construction to finish, which meant more obstacles to overcome for everyone at South Oak Cliff.
Because the community was so upset at the condition of this school, they didn't want their kids here while we were remodeling it. And I get it, but we didn't have a lot of options. We used to have a campus called Village Fair where we had students that got in discipline trouble they got sent to.
Man, that was total chaos. And when I mean total chaos, I mean with all capitals.
This has probably never happened before, but it happened to us. We had to move in December in the middle of a school year.
We leave for the holiday break and we come back and we have to completely move out.
Probably one of the most difficult things a campus administration has to do in regards to pick up your whole entire campus and having to pack up every single thing, desks, chairs, books, computers and label that stuff, and then it got lost.
Billingsville was so small, so the kids was feeling like they was in a Cracker Jack box. Just imagine you leaving a big old school and you have to go to a little school with no windows, no gym, no nothing.
A lot of times athletics is the last thing people are thinking about when you're trying to move an entire campus. We're trying to rehab a building, we're trying to make sure instruction continues, and with athletics being left by the wayside, a lot of times they were left to have to try to figure things out and come up with a plan of their own.
We had no locker rooms for no athletics. We really had a makeshift classroom that became the weight room.
They were using small patches of grass, maybe about 20, 25, 30 yards. They were going out using those small patches of grass to work out.
Well, we didn't have any facilities. Everything, we had to be transported everywhere.
Catching the bus, going to practice, sometimes the bus show up late because the bus has to do other routes. The bus has to go pick up elementary school, middle school kids before they get to us. So by the time they get to us, sometimes it's 5:30, 6 o'clock. We just now getting on the bus to go to football practice. So you go to practice, you get your couple hours in, you know, the time that you need.
Arrive back to the facility, to Village Fair, around 9:30, 10 p.m., and probably arrived home 10:30, 11, and had to come back and continue that process for 2 years.
It made coaches quit, it made teachers quit.
Finally, in January of 2020, more than 4 years after the initial student walkout, the Mecca had returned.
I want to dedicate this building today to the alumni of the school, to the students of the school. We want to dedicate this building to this community.
We done been through the hell, but we still prevailed. We are still undefeated. South Oak Cliff, SOC, you are undefeated.
3, 2, 1.
It was very emotional for me to see our kids get what they deserve. I'm sorry. We fought hard. The South Oak Cliff alumni, Burt Cave, parents, kids. I remember one kid asking me, say, is this really our school? That was very emotional. Man, it was beautiful. I'm not an alumni of SOC, but I'm a Dallas ISD alum, and I was so proud.
Just to walk in here in January and just to see the school where I graduated from, the school that taught me how to be a man, I was ecstatic.
We loved it. We loved all the new graphics. We loved all the classroom space. The small things, the new desk, the new restrooms, all the pictures on Legacy Hall, the things that make us SOC proud.
To go from none to having something felt good. So yes, it definitely felt amazing.
I never forget the feeling when those kids just said, thank you for believing in us, thank you for fighting for us. That's why I do this job. It's worth it. It's really worth it.
Just 2 months later, the doors at SOC would shut again, as the COVID-19 pandemic brought the entire world to a screeching halt.
The Dallas ISD is canceling all district events.
Obviously, we've suspended all operations indefinitely, and we'll reevaluate every 3 weeks based upon the new information that we get.
It was a tumultuous time because none of us, that's nationwide, knew what was going on with this COVID-19 pandemic, but it had decimated our community. It was hard for us to get testing sites in our community, hard to get the vaccines for those that did want it in our community for some time, even with the data screaming off the chart that these communities needed the most. We lost a lot of our grandparents, a lot of our aunts and uncles.
And of course, the learning was next to impossible. We had to give hot spots because this area, 53% of the students that live in the SOC attendance zone did not have access to Wi-Fi. So we stood up Operation Connectivity and gave them hot spots as a short-term solution. They were in the middle of spring football. And then now that everything got shut down.
We felt like we was getting going. Got back in the flow, got back in the building, weight room. We started getting the kids to buy in, you know. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and it just shut us down. It just set us so far back.
And for some of our kids, this is life. This is how we keep them focused on academics. So even though academics was continuing via Zoom, the fact that they were banned from participating in athletic sports, we could see that the motivation to continue academically definitely suffered. And a lot of them were sad and possibly even depressed at times because they didn't have the thing that they loved the most.
Yeah, it was pretty big, man. A lot of us got out of shape. Wasn't ready for a lot of the things that we was coming up for us.
Despite the delays and disappointment of not being able to utilize the newly renovated campus, the Golden Bears won 9 games and a district championship in 2020. Sock appeared poised to make a deep run in the playoffs, especially when kicker Antonio Loya made a 43-yard field goal with 18 seconds remaining to take a 1-point lead over Frisco in the area round.
After we kicked the field goal, we was all hype on the sideline. And then I remember one thing, Coach Spence came to us, he was like, don't get too hyped, the game is not over.
I was there in the press box watching the game. We were excited. I knew, okay, it was the last few minutes. We had it, it was good. So I get on the elevator to come down to celebrate, and I get down there, and it was like a weird, eerie silence.
Yeah, we kicked the ball off.
Oh my God. No way. Oh my God.
And they ran the back, kicked the field goal and won again.
Man, when we lost, I can't even really describe that feeling. Like, we was all just down.
It didn't feel real for most of us. It was like, you know, you never thought it could happen. We thought we had the game won.
Man, you should have seen us that night. We got back to the school, from the staff to the kids. We were completely stunned.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking, but at the same time, it was also motivation, because the thing about this game is everything that you learn from it normally comes at the expense of losing.
Now we got everything we need. We got the new locker room, we got new uniforms, we got new classrooms, new school building, new turf field, we got all that. So now it's time to win. Now we got to prove to everybody, hey, this ain't all for nothing.
In 2021, the Golden Bears finally had a place to call home and resources to work with. But their mentality never changed, and their resolve never wavered. It was about the work, not the environment.
You know, it's some benefit to having nice things, but, you know, 45 pounds weighs 45 pounds no matter where you are. In 100-yard fields and 10-yard end zones, regardless of where you are or what you have.
The success just didn't come because of the facilities that we have. We work hard. You know, we do a lot of stuff and don't make excuses that a lot of other people do make excuses about. And we suck it up and we go to work, and we still have the same expectations to be a state champion. Somebody's gonna always have the advantage facility-wise, resource-wise, economic-wise, you know, things like that. The one advantage they can have is, can they outwork you?
The Bears had their work cut out for them in Game 1 as they took on Duncanville, a team that had reached the state championship game in Texas's top division twice in the last 3 years. A team that had beaten Sock by a combined score of 100-6 over the last 2 seasons. And a team coached by Jason Todd's mentor, Reginald Samples, the Godfather.
If anybody knows Texas high school football, Duncanville Powerhouse 6A program, and they've been the big brother of the neighborhood of the southern sector for a long time. And so we played that game kind of like David and Goliath.
Everybody was saying we're gonna lose 63-0, 63-7, 56 maybe to 14, but we came out and we might have lost by 2 touchdowns, but we proved in the second half, like, hey, we ain't scared of these boys. And our defense ended up getting some big stops, our offense ended up scoring a few times. You know, we just proved to everybody, hey, we ain't scared. We here, it's our time.
Every year, you can see the confidence in the entire program. The competition level gets closer and tighter. It gets harder to beat them. That's when you know.
When we came back in the second half, I seen all the fight in us. I seen
the talent, I seen that we had something in us that could possibly win us a state championship.
I play golf on Saturdays with the Cedar Hill superintendent and the Duncanville superintendent. And this year, the Duncanville superintendent says, Doc, y'all got a good one this time. Yeah, you got to watch this team. And so I knew something special was about to happen.
When we played Duncanville, I told my executive director that we're finna win the state championship. I felt it. I knew it. If we could go and challenge them like we did, I knew there was great things coming.
There was never any doubt that South Oak Cliff had the talent to contend at the 5A Division II level in 2021. You can look up and down the roster and feel really good about a lot of the players. Heck, just look at the recruit sheet and you'll see just how much talent they had on the field.
I don't know that I had state expectations for them, but I thought that they could be a pretty tough out in the playoffs.
I thought they would dominate in district as they typically have done.
Despite all the obstacles laid in front of them, the Bears rose to the top of Dallas ISD in 2014 and remained there, winning the district title in 6 of the prior 7 seasons. The foundation had been laid long before the doors reopened at 3601 South Marsalis, with a staff accustomed to working in the inner city and a team built to overcome adversity.
I've always been told that kids don't really care what you know till they know you care about them as people. And they need guidance and mentorship off the field. And once you get them to play hard for you, the sky's the limit.
The word grind comes to mind. You have to know what you're signing up for. And I think before we were switching schools and all of that, that was our mentality as a program. That was what we had began to transition to, getting the kids and community used to the grind that was within the coaching staff.
People make excuses, won't ever accomplish anything. And so there was no excuses with the coaching staff, with Coach Todd. They didn't whine and complain about not having the facilities. They just kept trying and kept pushing towards their goal.
A lot of people get the misconception of just getting the best talent in the city makes you successful. But hard work outbeats talent any day. So we know we have a big target on our back. We know we have to hold ourselves to a certain standard.
I always said, it's us versus us. It's not us versus, our competition. Because we know, like I said, in our district, we know we can beat certain teams by a certain amount of points, but we never looked at it like that. Let's just make sure we working on the things we have to work on, and let's just make sure we are perfect.
1, 2, 3, family! Sauk completed another perfect district season with a 71-0 win over Jefferson on November 4th. The Bears raised the trophy that night, but they also honored their own past and healed old wounds in the process.
Coach Mays, he contacted my sister and I, and he wanted to do a Norman Jett Day. He felt like it was time to honor my dad and all that he had done for South Oak Cliff. They had T-shirts made for us. They had us up for dinner up in the press box. We watched the game, and at halftime went down on the field, and a lot of the players, 20, 30 of them were there, and coaches, and it was very special. Special to my sister and I, especially. My dad would have been so proud to have been a part of it and seen it too.
The arrival of the postseason meant facing a familiar foe, Frisco, the team that had ended Sauk's season each of the last 2 years, including the ultimate heartbreak of 2020.
Oh man, you don't understand the preparation you went into. We was like, we're not going home in the second round again.
Man, that was in every meeting going through the season, every meeting. Frisco, that 18 second, that was in every meeting. Me and my team going through that game, I know we was like, bro, we can't go back on. We can't lose to this team again.
The kids wanted to, the coaches wanted to. It's kind of within our personality to kind of find a fight, and run towards it, and that just happened to be it.
We stamped that. We got past the Frisco. A big circle was Aledo. That's what we had to get to.
The Aledo Bearcats, they are tied for the top spot with 8 overall state titles.
Aledo is the big bad wolf. Aledo is the final boss. Aledo is the most decorated program in Texas high school football history.
Aledo stands alone. 9 state championships.
Coach Buck, Coach Wood, they run a great program over there.
A state record, 10th state championship for the Bearcats.
They were real fundamental. They're in sync. Their O-line is great.
Hands down, the best offensive line group that I've ever seen in high school.
Goodbye, DeMarco Roberts. Another tremendous job by that offensive line.
I mean, they're a great team.
They are what success is measured as in football and 5A.
Come on! Let's shock the world!
The biggest thing that I saw that was different between the South Oak Cliff teams in previous years was how disciplined they were. They did not make mistakes.
And we have an interception right before half, and we take it all the way down, and now we're feeling the momentum.
And I was at another ball game, and I saw the pick six come through on social media, and I looked and turned to the other reporter, and I said, I think South Oak Cliff's gonna knock off Aledo.
And then, you know, Aledo starts coming back. And then in the second half, they make it closer.
We know, like, we always got to keep a positive mindset in our head because if you get down on yourself, nothing's going to go right. So we stayed up, went out field and scored.
I remember we was up against Frisco last year, and everybody was loud, everybody was jumping, everybody lost their heads, you know, because we wasn't really used to being there before. So what we did was, when we scored, we was like, nah, this not it. You know, the game not over. We still got 4 minutes, you know. We still got to come out there and get a stop.
We did not win, bro. We got to keep running this. Go.
We were worried. It was hold on.
I don't even have my hair finna fall out, but I'm over there stressing, man.
That drive was nerve-wracking, though. You know, they were moving fast, getting first downs.
With 48 seconds left, Aledo faced a 4th and 1 on the South Oak Cliff 14-yard line.
I was at the lefty tackle spot, and I seen him come out in the package where they got in the center. Mind you, they haven't been in the center all game.
We saw him go under the center. He never goes under the center, so we was like, QB sneak, gotta be.
As they snapped the ball, I see the quarterback mishandle the snap.
So I just crashed inside with CJ. We crashed inside, I see the ball, say, ball.
And I hop on the ball. It was feel like I was in a dream. It was the best feeling of my life.
Yes, sir. Let's go!
After the game, when we fumbled that snap and they got the ball back and the game was over at that point, seeing how excited their kids were, I was sad for our kids, but I was excited for Coach Todd and South Oak Cliff. He did a great job preparing those kids, and those kids did a great job of executing and had a perfect game plan, and they made it happen.
Oh yeah, a lot of people were surprised because, you know, an inner city program doesn't beat Aledo. They don't beat the Aledos, the South Lake Carrolls, the Westlakes, the Lake Travises, the Allens of the world. It just doesn't happen. And for South Oak Cliff to do that as an inner city program, I think really sent shockwaves across the entire state.
I remember posting the score on my Twitter, and you know, people from all over the state just going crazy. Even, you know, surrounding states. I had, you know, tweets coming in from Louisiana and other places like that.
We was glad that we knew that we had the courage to really beat Aledo because it was a big-time team. We felt like nobody else could stop us, and that what built our confidence.
They never let the moment get too big for them. You know, they attacked each game as just it was another game. No one got big-headed, no one just started acting any different. It was kind of like, okay, we won, now let's get back to work.
That was the hill that they had to overcome. And knowing that they could now beat Aledo, that gave them all kinds of confidence. And now, we played some good teams later, but now we had some swag. And now, not just Oak Cliff was cheering for SOC. Then there was Dallas ISD, and then there was the city of Dallas, and then there was Dallas County.
It was something that I think captured the city's imagination at first because of just how great they were playing, but then it became a story about an entire community.
Everybody that had those roots in Oak Cliff wanted to be a part of it. If you're from this area or you from DISD, you understand the struggles that you have to go through that a lot of places don't. So when you see a team that's really, they've pushed through those struggles and they're making a run, you have to back them. There's no other way.
Every once in a while, a high school football team will become the team with the buzz around here. It's happened a few times. It happened with Kyler Murray was really cooking at Allen. It happened when Duncanville was really going in 2018. And then it happened again with South Oak Cliff. And the buzz around Dallas for South Oak Cliff was palpable.
Yeah, Jason Todd tweeted earlier in the week that it was going to be snowing
at AT&T Stadium. And you knew, considering the story, it was the talk of Texas high school football that week and really the whole season.
We knew that they were going to bring a big crowd. But when I walked out there at AT&T Stadium and saw that sea of white across AT&T Stadium at every level, it was jarring. It was shocking.
I give you the jitters. I can still remember it right now. It's making my skin like that's a dream come true. You know, that's like playing at a big college game. But yeah, that's a dream come true.
It feel like a real moment. It really feel like I was floating or something. It didn't feel real.
That was crazy. That was the loudest I've ever been in the stadium in my life.
My nerves was out the roof. I walked out there like I was playing an NFL game. I was like, oh, they really came out to support us? Like, it's all white. I'm like, bro, this is not real. Like,
man, we better win. We better win, man. But nah, for real, it was one of the most proudest moments I had in my life.
We walked down, I'm like, man, these people actually came out here, man. I'm like, man, that's just what the hood can do. When you bring everybody together, the hood can be something powerful that nobody can ever break.
This was not SOC versus another Dallas ISD school. This was the city of Dallas versus Liberty Hill.
4th and 6, South Oak Cliff going for it. Henry Jennings guns it, end zone, it's caught for the touchdown. Corinthian Coleman. A 17-yard bullet from Kevin Henry Jennings.
I'm gonna tell you the guy who I felt like was the most impressive football player on the field, on either side of the field, was their quarterback. He was almost perfect in that game.
First down, Henry Jennings to the end zone for Corey. A diving catch for the touchdown. The sophomore they call Wild Man makes his mark in the state championship.
Honestly, I thought SOC was going to blow them out. That's credit to Liberty Hill. Liberty Hill is a very good team, and they had a great game plan, and they kept that thing very competitive.
You don't know how fast this offense is on the slot T until you actually experience it. And only Liberty Hill can run it at this level, honestly. First and goal, and Thomas pulls his way into the end zone for the touchdown. Feed it to Thomas, and he's got his second touchdown.
You know, everybody kind of feeling down like we lost and all that.
And we are all tied at 14 in 5A Division II.
The leaders on the team, they telling everybody and the coaches, they're like, it's tied up, like, we still got a second half to go.
The South Oak Cliff team is still staying on the field right now, getting some instruction from Jason Todd.
I just told them that, you know, you got to realize that, you know, at this moment right here, it's a state championship game. And if winning state was easy, everybody would win. We had 24 minutes to decide that we want to be a state champion or not.
Defense had been SOC's calling card since Todd took over, and Death Row put the clamps on Liberty Hill in the second half, shutting out the Panthers and their slot T offense. A unique scheme, but one the Bears have seen in the past.
You gotta think about years prior to this year.
We had a history in the last 6 years playing teams like that. We played a good Midlothian team. We shut Midlothian out that year when we played them in the first round of the playoffs.
And the Friscos of the world that, you know, we've played the team before. So it wasn't something that was completely unique to Liberty Hill.
I mean, that's what South Oak Cliff has been built on the last 6 years, has been defense. So what better way than for the defense to make some adjustments after a shaky second quarter?
I really just think it was the mindset, you know, is from an inner Dallas school and trying to win a state championship, which hasn't been done in a long time. It was just motivation to just say, shoot, we got to get going and, you know, we got to get this thing done.
3rd and 6 for Liberty Hill, and South Oak Cliff with the stop on Noah Long. Now on 4th and 16, Thomas airs it out, looking for Pitchford, and it's broken up. South Oak Cliff takes over with 4:39 left. 3rd and 3 for SOC.
They called the play. I knew it was a running play, so I know I'm getting the ball. I know who pulling, my boy Dennis. I was like, Dennis, you got to pull and get the block.
Farrar, first down and more.
And I followed him. He made the perfect block, his man on the ground.
When I saw Big Dennis pull around that corner and Farrar come around behind him, I said it's a wrap.
It's a perfect lane to the touchdown.
How about a touchdown?
And when he took the ball and said,
you guys are welcome. I knew it then.
Exclamation point!
I've been very fortunate. I have called Usain Bolt winning gold medals at Olympic Stadium in Rio. I've called the highest scoring FBS game in history between Texas A&M and LSU at Kyle Field. I have called Kansas overtime win at Allen Fieldhouse. I would put that roar, that reaction when Quaylon Farrar sealed it for Sock up with any of them.
South Oak Cliff and Dallas ISD have their golden moment. The Sock Golden Bears are state champions.
It had to be the best moment of my life right there. You know, winning state, over 40,000 people there.
It was just like amazing. It's like you living in a dream.
Man, we was, I can't even tell you the happiness that we all felt. Like, it's guys that was crying, you know what I'm saying? It was guys that were just really thankful that they played on the team, including me. You know, I can just look and label myself 20 years from now, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a legend, you know? We did that, and nobody can take that from us.
I felt that was one of the biggest moments of my life. You know, everybody say you can't do it, and we did it. Just unbelievable.
Reginald Samples just watched his protege hoist a state championship trophy and now has to prepare his Duncanville squad for their game just minutes after Sock made history.
I was so proud of him. It was very emotional to try to keep focused on my game and watch him winning the state championship. I really can't describe how I felt.
It was an incredible day. You know, both my sister and I, as we walked into the stadium, we're crying. We get to our seats and we're crying. And then at the end of the game, you know, you're watching history being made, and we just loved it. And we also knew that our dad would love it as well.
I was just so overwhelmed with joy. I hugged everybody. Out of 49,000 people, I think I hugged 20,000 of them.
I was screaming in the suite. I was screaming. My voice was gone. I cried because I knew the work that went in to getting on that at that moment. Our boys, our coaches, our staff, our community has been through a lot. So for that day, December 18, 2021, to be that day where we literally made history for not just our community, but for the whole entire city, it brought tears to my eyes.
Shooks, man, it probably added on another 10 or 15 years for that community as far as instilling hope there. You know, they're affecting guys over in that program, man, in that area. That's probably in 3rd grade, 4th grade.
It started to hit me like weeks after, once we had the parade, once I had like kids coming up to me wanting to take pictures. I'm like, I actually did something to bring the community together, man. I'm like, man, I'm proud.
The support for Sock continued as the entire city celebrated with not one, but 2 parades. The Dallas drought had ended, and the original #1 was back on top.
It's like a weight off your shoulder, you know, because outside, Dallas can't win, but hey, they see now that it can be done, you know.
It was the only true state football championship, because when Sunset won it, it was just the large city schools. When we had Booker T win it, it was the black schools. And so you go all the way back. This is the first time we beat everybody. Everybody was in the game at our classification, and Sock did it.
I think it had to be Sock. It just did, because from a standpoint of how iconic they are in Dallas, I think Sock's always kind of had the big, brash, like almost in-your-face type of style. And I think it was extremely appropriate that it was Jason Todd, and you could tell after the game with him in the press conference.
I've been following Dallas football my whole life. You know, I was at the stadium when Carter won the state championship in 1988. I was coaching it against South Lake Carroll when that Fox ran down the field. And I'm really like a Dallas historian. And I've only coached in Dallas. I've only went to school in Dallas. So everything about me is Dallas born and bred. And I'm proud to be from Dallas. And I'm proud to make sure we got over this hump and we got a state championship in Dallas.
I think it had to be somebody like him to really cash in on the special moment.
But in the larger history of Texas high school football, South Oak Cliff's victory carried even more significance. It broke down the doors to an exclusive club many thought would never grant access to a school from the inner city again.
It's a little bit of hyperbole, I understand it, but it was a movie that played out in real life, what South Oak Cliff accomplished. Like, that's not supposed to happen.
I think it's one of the great stories in the history of high school football because honestly, I never thought we'd see an inner city program win a state championship in football ever again.
You're always told it's not possible. You know, the inner city has always been seen as a stepping stone, you know, even when there was a ton of talent. Because of resources, you know, and those types of things. It was seen that you can't get it done there, you know, so I think we killed that.
This game is about busting stereotypes that the team from the inner city that has a ton of talent, well, they're undisciplined. Well, they don't have what it takes to win it all in the end. Enough of that. South Oak Cliff broke down that barrier. And it gives any other inner city team in the state of Texas and beyond hope. Yes, you need buy-in from your community. You need support. You need it from the top down. But South Oak Cliff has proved you can do it in football from the inner city.
The success athletically has carried over to the classroom. For the second straight year, South Oak Cliff High School achieved a 100% graduation rate. The Mecca is now stronger than ever. And it may never have happened if a group of students hadn't led a call for change on December 7th, 2015.
It's all eyes on us right now. And I believe that the foundational things are put in place so that our young people can continue to grow. And I believe that they're gonna take what's happening now and run with it and take it further than any of us could even imagine.
There's a new sense of pride throughout the community. And so now you have people from all over saying, oh, well, I want my children to go to South Oak Cliff High School.
And it's amazing that that protest happened to happen on December the 7th, 2015, for us to wake up and give the school what it deserves. It's been quite an interesting journey.
It's even more amazing now to still see some of those individuals that were a part of the initial protest to be here. One of our students, David Johnson, is actually here.
Hey, take the coach and go from it. Let's go. Don't make the same mistake twice. You good? Hey, Mike, let's dominate. Mike, let's go. Hey, man, number one right here. Number one. Number one. Number one.
To see that happening is beautiful.
And so to see the school get what we fought for and to see us win academically and athletically is what we promised the community. This is what building futures through education looks like. We told it, if you give us the resources, we will win. And as soon as we got it, we put Dallas, the city of Dallas, on our shoulders, and we brought a championship to Dallas, Texas.
This community stepped up and delivered on what they asked for. They asked for these kind of resources, and they delivered on it. And that's ought to be a lesson to everybody.
A lot of people relate to 7 years, but this journey is longer than that. You know, this moment we lived out in December was a moment I dreamed about when I was in high school. You know, walking off the field my last game. You know, so, shoot. It's been a dream full of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of letdowns, a lot of sad moments, but at the end of the day, we just kept grinding. And when the time is right, you know, the time will be right. And we capitalized on our moment. For the guys that I work with, the school I'm at, for us to be the one to get over the hump first, I mean, it was a blessing and a testament to our hard work and all the hard work, the kids, the coaches, the parents, the buy-in that we had from everybody in the community. You know, it was all worth it. And nothing ever will take this away. And these kids will forever be legends in the city of Dallas, you know, until this city crumbles.